The storm hit Boston just after midnight, hard enough to rattle the stained glass windows of the Blackwell Public Library. Clara Bennett stood alone beneath the old brass reading lamps, surrounded by towers of returned books, listening to rain lash against the stone walls like impatient fingers. The city outside had disappeared into sheets of silver water. Only the library remained warm, ancient, and silent, with its marble columns, dark wooden balconies, and long shadows stretching between the shelves. She should have gone home 2 hours ago, but going home meant returning to a small apartment with cold pipes, unpaid bills, and neighbors who looked through her like she was part of the wallpaper. Here, among books, Clara could pretend she belonged somewhere. Books did not stare at her body. They did not smirk when she walked past. They did not call her sweet in that cruel way people used when they meant heavy, plain, forgettable. Books waited. Books remembered. Clara pushed her glasses up her nose and reached for the next return from the storm basket, a heavy, old volume bound in cracked brown leather. The title on the spine had faded almost completely, but the library stamp inside told her it belonged to the private rare book collection. "That's odd," she whispered. Rare books were never supposed to leave the archival room. A faint chill moved over her skin. She opened the cover carefully, expecting to find a misfiled card or a damaged page. Instead, something black slipped from between the hollowed-out center of the book and fell onto the desk with a soft, heavy thud. A diary. Not a library journal, not a notebook. A black leather diary with no title, no initials, only a silver clasp shaped like a small blade. Clara stared at it. The rain struck harder. Somewhere in the library, an old pipe groaned. She knew she should call security. She knew she should lock it in the evidence cabinet and wait until morning. But curiosity had always been Clara's most dangerous weakness. It was the thing that made her read footnotes no one else noticed. The thing that made her spot forged signatures, missing pages, and lies hidden in polite language. Her fingers hovered over the clasp. Then she opened it. The first pages were written in a precise, controlled hand. Names, dates, locations, coded references to docks, judges, shipments, foundations, banks. Some names had been crossed out, others were circled twice. A few had symbols beside them, a crown, a knife, a child's star. Clara's breathing slowed. This was not a diary. This was a map of something dangerous. She turned another page, then another, and suddenly her entire body went cold. Her name was written in the center of the page. Clara Bennett. She stared at it, unable to move. Below it, in the same controlled handwriting, were 3 words: "Do not touch." Her pulse kicked hard. She flipped the page. Clara Bennett. Again. "Do not involve her." Another page. Clara Bennett. "She is not leverage." Another. Clara Bennett. "Never let Santoro find her." The library seemed to tilt around her. A sound left her throat, too small to be a scream. Her hand trembled against the paper. Her name appeared again and again, page after page, written like a prayer, a warning, or an obsession. Then the lights flickered. The front doors of the library opened. Not unlocked. Opened. Clara froze as cold rain swept across the marble entrance. 5 men stepped inside wearing black suits and long coats. They moved with the stillness of men who did not need to hurry because the world usually got out of their way. Then he entered. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black coat damp with rain, dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes like winter glass. He did not look around the library. He looked directly at her. The men spread out behind him, blocking the exits. Clara's fingers closed around the diary. The man stopped beneath the central chandelier, rainwater dripping from the edge of his coat onto the marble floor. "Put the book down," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Clara swallowed. her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Who are you?" The man's eyes lowered to the diary in her hands. Every man behind him went still. Clara knew his face then not from newspapers, because men like him were never photographed clearly, but from whispers, from patrons who lowered their voices when his name appeared in court reports, from donors who suddenly changed tables at charity events when he entered the room. Adrian Moretti, the Mafia Boss, whose empire was said to touch half of Boston, harbor contracts, luxury hotels, private clubs, judges, politicians, men who smiled in daylight and disappeared at night. Clara took one step back. His gaze moved from the diary to her face. Not angry, not surprised. Something worse, painful recognition. "Why is my name in your diary?" she asked, and hated the way her voice shook. One of his men reached inside his jacket. Adrian lifted one hand. The man stopped instantly. Clara's fear sharpened into anger. "Answer me." The corner of Adrian's mouth did not move, but his eyes changed. Something dark passed through them, restrained and dangerous. "You should not have opened that, and you should not have written my name in it." The silence after that was so complete that Clara could hear rainwater dripping from the coats of the armed men behind him. Adrian took one slow step closer. Clara raised the diary against her chest, as if paper could protect her from a man like him. "Were you watching me?" she demanded. "Hunting me? Planning something?" His expression hardened. "No." "Then why?" Adrian stopped at the edge of the reading table. The brass lamp threw gold light across his face, revealing a faint scar near his eyebrow and exhaustion hidden beneath control. When he spoke, his voice was low enough to feel intimate and dangerous at the same time. "Because you were the only woman I was never supposed to want." Clara forgot how to breathe. Behind him, one of the bodyguards turned sharply toward the tall windows. A sound cracked through the storm. Glass exploded. Clara screamed as bullets tore through the reading room windows, shattering stained glass into glittering shards. Adrian moved before she understood what was happening. One moment he stood across the table from her. The next, his body slammed into hers, forcing her down behind the heavy oak desk. His arm came around her waist, hard and protective. "Stay down," he ordered. The library erupted into chaos. Men shouted. Gunfire snapped through the air. Books exploded from shelves in bursts of dust and paper. Clara pressed herself against the floor, diary trapped beneath her chest, Adrian's body shielding hers from the rain of glass. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, steady, controlled, as if this happened to him all the time. A bullet struck the brass lamp above them, plunging the desk into darkness. Clara squeezed her eyes shut. Adrian's hand tightened at her waist. "Look at me." She opened her eyes. His face was inches from hers. "Do you trust me?" "No," she breathed. Something almost like approval crossed his face. "Good. Trust your instincts, then. When I move, you move with me." Before she could respond, he pulled her up and dragged her behind the circulation desk. His men returned fire toward the shattered windows. Dark figures moved outside in the rain. Clara stumbled over broken glass. Adrian caught her before she fell. His hand closed around her wrist, not cruelly, but with the unbreakable certainty of a man who would rather tear the building down than let go. "This way." He led her through a staff corridor and into the old archive wing. Clara knew this passage better than anyone. She had spent years memorizing its stubborn locks, hidden alcoves, and service doors no one used anymore. "You're going the wrong way," she said breathlessly. Adrian glanced at her. She pointed left. "There's a freight elevator behind the map room. It still works if you know where to kick it." For the first time that night, he looked faintly surprised. Then a crash sounded behind them. Clara grabbed his sleeve and pulled him left. The freight elevator groaned open seconds before the armed men reached the corridor. Adrian pushed Clara inside and stepped in after her, one hand braced on the metal gate. The elevator shuddered downward through darkness. Clara clutched the diary to her chest. Adrian looked at it. "You still have it," he said. "I'm not giving it back until you tell me why men are shooting through my library windows." "Our library." She glared at him. "Excuse me?" His jaw tightened, as if he regretted the words. "I fund the restoration." Clara stared. The anonymous donor. For 3 years, an unnamed foundation had paid for the library's repairs, saved the children's wing, restored the rare book vault, and kept Clara's department from being shut down by the city. "That was you?" "Yes." "Why?" The elevator stopped with a violent jolt. Adrian leaned close, one hand against the wall beside her head, not touching her. Almost. "Because some places deserve to survive," he said, "and because you were in one of them." Before she could answer, the elevator doors opened into the underground loading bay. 3 black SUVs waited in the rain. Clara looked from the vehicles to Adrian. "No, absolutely not, Clara." The way he said her name felt like a locked door opening. She hated it. "You don't get to say my name like you know me." His face remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. "Men just tried to kill you. They were trying to kill you. They shot after I moved toward you." That silenced her. Adrian stepped closer. "Victor Santoro knows you opened the diary. That means he knows you may have seen what inside. I don't even know what inside. That won't matter to him." Rain swept into the loading bay. Sirens wailed far away. Too late to save anyone. Clara looked down at the diary. Her name stared back from the open page, written over and over like something forbidden. She should have run from him. Instead, with glass in her hair and fear crawling under her skin, she got into the SUV. Adrian sat beside her, but did not touch her again. That almost made it worse. The city blurred outside, the tinted windows, wet streets, red traffic lights, empty sidewalks, the ghostly shine of Boston Harbor under the storm. Clara pressed herself against the door, leaving as much space between them as possible. Adrian sat perfectly still. A man like him did not fidget, did not explain, did not apologize. But every time headlights flashed across the window, Clara caught him watching her reflection. "Stop looking at me," she said. "I'm making sure you are not hurt. I'm not yours to protect." His eyes met hers in the dark glass. "No," he said. "You're not." The answer should have relieved her. It didn't. They drove to a penthouse above the harbor, all black marble, cold glass, and windows tall enough to make the city look like a kingdom beneath them. Clara stood in the center of the room, soaked, furious, and painfully aware of how out of place she looked in her rain-damp cardigan and scuffed shoes. Adrian removed his coat and handed it to one of his men. The movement revealed a black shirt fitted across his shoulders, the hint of tattoos climbing his forearm beneath rolled sleeves. He looked less like a businessman now, and more like what he was, danger contained in human form. "Sit," he said. "No." One of his bodyguards glanced at her like no one had ever told Adrian Moretti no, and survived. Adrian's mouth curved slightly, not a smile, a warning that looked too much like interest. "Then stand." Clara lifted the diary. "Start talking." Adrian looked toward the windows. For a long moment, she thought he would refuse. Then he said, 5 years ago, my older brother Enzo was murdered." The room quieted. He had a daughter, Sophia, 6 years old now. Most of Boston believes she died with him. Clara's grip loosened around the diary. "She didn't. No, I hid her." Something in his voice changed when he said it. Not softness, not exactly, but the temperature around him lowered, as if grief had frozen into something permanent. "Victor Santoro wants her found," Adrian continued. "Not because she's a child, Because Enzo left her controlling shares in old Moretti properties, trusts and legal holdings that Victor needs to absorb my family's empire. Clara frowned. What does that have to do with me? You catalogued a rare book 6 months ago, a 17th century prayer book from a private estate donation. I catalogue hundreds of books. This one had a false spine. Inside was a birth record, a bank seal, and a handwritten confession from the man who betrayed my brother. The world seemed to tilt again. Clara remembered the book, the brittle pages, the unusual binding, the faint smell of smoke. She had flagged it for restoration because something about the stitching looked wrong. I sent it to preservation, she said slowly, and then it disappeared. Clara looked down at the diary. My name is in here because of a missing book. Your name is in there because my men wanted to bring you in, question you, use you, frighten you if necessary. Adrian's face hardened. I said no. Clara turned a page with shaking fingers. Do not use her. Do not touch her. She is not leverage. Her throat tightened in a way she did not expect. Why? She asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. The storm flashed white across the windows. Finally, he said, Because I saw you once. Clara's stomach twisted. You said you weren't watching me. I wasn't. His voice sharpened, then steadied. I came to a donor meeting. You were in the children's wing. A board member was mocking a teenage volunteer because he couldn't read well. You made the board member apologize in front of everyone. Clara remembered that. Mr. Hensley, with his expensive watch and cruel mouth. She had been terrified afterward that she would lose her job. Adrian's gaze settled on her. You were shaking, he said, but you didn't back down. Clara looked away first. She did not know what to do with the image of a mafia boss noticing the one moment she had thought no one saw. That doesn't explain why you wrote my name like a warning. His voice dropped. It was a warning. To whom? His eyes held hers. To myself. Silence expanded between them. For one dangerous second, the penthouse seemed to vanish. There was only the storm, the diary, and the man who looked at Clara as if she were both a problem and a prayer. Then the elevator doors opened. A woman entered in a white designer coat, tall and elegant, with dark red lipstick and diamonds at her ears. She moved like someone born into rooms where other people were expected to move aside. Her eyes traveled over Clara slowly. Then she looked at Adrian. The council is waiting, she said. And Victor Santoro is already spreading rumors that you attacked the public library to steal evidence. Clara stiffened. What? The woman's gaze returned to her. So this is the librarian. Adrian's voice cooled. Bianca. The woman smiled faintly. Don't worry. I understand why you kept her quiet. She's unexpected. The insult landed softly, wrapped in silk. Clara lifted her chin. Adrian took one step forward. The entire room felt it. Bianca's smile faded. Choose your next words carefully, Adrian said. Clara hated that part of her warmed at the warning. Bianca's eyes flicked between them, suddenly more interested than amused. You're making mistakes already. No, Adrian said. I'm correcting old ones. Bianca left him with a silver envelope and a warning. By morning, every news outlet in Boston would say Clara Bennett had stolen a mafia ledger from the library and helped Adrian Moretti destroy evidence. By morning, she was right. Clara woke in a guest room she had not agreed to sleep in, beneath sheets softer than anything she owned, to find her face on television. Librarian questioned in Mafia Archive scandal. The footage showed her leaving the library with Adrian. The angle made it look like she was calm, complicit, protected by criminals. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed the remote with numb fingers. A reporter stood outside the damaged library. Sources say Clara Bennett, a senior archival librarian, may have knowingly concealed materials connected to ongoing organized crime investigations. No, she whispered. The door opened. Adrian stood there holding a phone, already dressed in black, his expression carved from stone. "I can fix this," he said. Clara turned on him. "You caused this." His face did not change, but something in his eyes tightened. "I brought you out alive. You brought me into your war. It was already around you. Because of you." He crossed the room slowly. "Because of Victor Santoro. Because of your diary." Her voice broke despite her effort to control it. "Because of your secrets. Because men like you write people's names down and decide whether their lives matter." Adrian stopped. For the first time, she saw anger in him, not loud, not wild, but quiet enough to be terrifying. "You think I don't know that?" he asked. Clara fell silent. He looked away, jaw tight. "Every name in that diary is a decision I did not want to make. People I couldn't save. People I had to use. People I had to bury." His gaze returned to her. "Your name was the only one I refused to turn into a weapon." The words hit harder than they should have. Clara wrapped her arms around herself. "I want to go home." "No." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get to keep me here. If you go home, Santoro's men will be waiting. Then call the police." Adrian laughed once, without humor. "Half of them call Victor first. I'm not staying in your penthouse like some hostage." His expression darkened. "You are not my hostage." "Then let me leave." For a long moment, neither moved. Then Adrian stepped aside. Clara was so surprised she almost didn't move. He handed her a phone. "One of my cars will take you anywhere you want." "I don't want your car." "You'll take the car." His voice lowered. "Hate me from inside it if you need to." Clara should have thrown the phone back at him. Instead, she took it, because she was frightened enough to be practical and angry enough to hate him for being right. She went home under a gray Boston sky, with 2 black SUVs behind her and a driver who never spoke. Her apartment looked smaller than she remembered. Peeling paint near the window, a leaning bookshelf, a mug in the sink. A life she had built carefully out of quiet routines and small comforts. For 1 hour, she almost convinced herself the nightmare had ended. Then she found the envelope taped inside her closet. No stamp, no name. Inside were photographs. Clara leaving the library. Clara buying tea. Clara standing outside her apartment. Clara at the children's wing, kneeling beside a little girl with dark curls and a pink backpack. Clara's breath stopped. On the back of the final photo, someone had written, "Ask Moretti why he really knows your name." Her knees nearly gave out. She called the number Adrian had left in the phone. He answered on the first ring. "Clara." Her voice was barely sound. "There are pictures of me." The silence on the other end changed. Cold. Deadly. "Where are you?" "My apartment." "Lock the door." "It's already locked." "Lock it again." A sound came from the hallway. Clara turned. The old floorboards outside her door creaked. She backed away, phone pressed to her ear. "Adrian," she whispered. His voice dropped into something calm and lethal. "Go to the bathroom. Shut the door. Get in the tub." The apartment door handle turned. Clara ran. The front door burst open as she slammed the bathroom door and locked it. Heavy footsteps crossed her apartment. A man cursed. The bathroom handle rattled. Clara climbed into the tub, shaking so hard the phone nearly slipped from her hand. "Stay low," Adrian said. The door cracked. Then the world outside exploded into shouting. Glass shattered. Men yelled. A gunshot cracked through the apartment, deafening and close. Clara covered her ears and curled into herself. Then silence. A knock touched the bathroom door. Not a kick, not a demand. 3 controlled knocks. "Clara," Adrian said from the other side. "Open the door." She crawled out of the tub and unlocked it with trembling fingers. Adrian stood in her ruined bathroom doorway, breathing hard, his black coat wet from rain. Behind him, her apartment was destroyed. Books scattered, furniture overturned, window broken. His men moved through the rooms with silent efficiency. Clara stared at him. Then, to her horror, she started crying. Not delicate tears, not beautiful tears. The kind that came when a person had been strong too long and something inside finally collapsed. Adrian stepped forward, then stopped himself. His hands curled into fists at his sides. He looked like touching her might cost him every ounce of control he had. "Who took the pictures?" she asked. His voice was rougher than before. "Not me. I want to believe you." He flinched as if the words had struck him. "Then believe this," he said. "The man who did this will not touch you again." That should have frightened her. It did, but beneath the fear was something warmer and more dangerous. Because when Adrian Moretti said it, Clara believed him. He moved her that night to a safe house north of the city, near a stretch of stormy coastline where black waves crashed against rocks and fog swallowed the road. The house was beautiful in a lonely way: glass walls, stone floors, security cameras hidden beneath copper eaves, a fireplace that made the rooms glow gold. Clara sat near the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sea attack the shore. Adrian stood across the room, speaking quietly with his men. She noticed things she did not want to notice: how no one interrupted him, how he listened more than he spoke, how his anger never spilled. It gathered. At dawn, a little girl arrived, 6 years old, dark curls, serious brown eyes, pink backpack. Clara stood so quickly the blanket fell from her shoulders. The girl from the photograph. Adrian crossed the room before Clara could speak. His face changed when he saw the child, not soft exactly, but human, in a way Clara had not yet seen. "Sophia," he said quietly. The little girl ran to him. Adrian knelt and caught her carefully, one large hand cradling the back of her head. Clara looked away, suddenly feeling like she had witnessed something private. When Sophia noticed her, she smiled shyly. "You're the library lady," the child said. Clara blinked. "You remember me? You helped me find the book about whales." Clara remembered then. A quiet child. A nervous woman who had brought her in. A pink backpack. Nothing remarkable at the time. Adrian stood, keeping Sophia close. "Sophia is Enzo's daughter," he said. "The hidden child. The dead brother's heir. The reason men were dying around old books and sealed records." Clara's fear rearranged itself into something sharper. "She was in my library," Clara said. "Once," Adrian replied. "Against my orders." Sophia frowned. "I wanted the whale book." Clara almost smiled. Adrian looked at the child. "And because of that whale book, half the city may burn." Sophia lowered her eyes. Clara's heart twisted. "She's 6, Clara said. Adrian's gaze moved to her. There it was again, that startled flicker, as if he was not used to anyone challenging him in defense of someone else. "I know," he said, quieter. For the next 2 days, Clara lived inside a world she had only read about in crime reports and whispered legends. Men arrived with encrypted phones. Lawyers came at midnight. A doctor checked Sophia's pulse and left through the back entrance. Adrian held meetings in a glass room overlooking the sea while Clara sat with Sophia by the fire, reading her stories about whales, hidden islands, and brave girls who outsmarted monsters. Sometimes Clara looked up and found Adrian watching from behind the glass. He always looked away first. On the 3rd night, Clara found him in the kitchen alone, sleeves rolled to his elbows, one hand braced against the counter. A cut crossed his knuckles. Blood had dried near his wrist, but he seemed not to notice. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing." That's what men say when they want to be dramatic. His eyebrow lifted. Clara took a clean towel from the drawer. Sit down. I don't take orders. Then stand there and bleed on your expensive floor. For a second, the faintest trace of amusement touched his mouth. He sat. Clara cleaned the cut carefully, aware of every breath between them. His hand was warm and scarred beneath it as a tattoo curled around his wrist. Latin words she did not recognize. He watched her face, not the wound. What? She asked. No one touches me without wanting something. Clara wrapped the towel around his hand. I want you to stop bleeding on the counter. His gaze deepened. She tied the cloth too tightly on purpose. He did not complain. The silence shifted. Outside, rain slid down the windows. Inside, the kitchen lights glowed soft and low. Adrian was close enough that she could see the faint shadow of exhaustion beneath his eyes. Close enough that if he leaned forward, his forehead might touch hers. His uninjured hand lifted slightly. Clara stopped breathing. Then Sophia called from the living room. Uncle Adrian? His hand dropped. The moment broke. Adrian stood so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. Clara stepped back, heart pounding. Neither of them said anything. But that night, Clara did not sleep. Neither, she suspected, did he. The next morning brought Bianca back. She arrived by helicopter, immaculate in cream silk, her diamonds catching the cold light. She kissed Sophia's cheek, ignored Clara at first, then looked her up and down with a smile too polite to be kind. Still here, Bianca said. Clara closed the book in her lap. Still literate, Sophia giggled. Adrian, standing by the fireplace, looked down to hide something that might have been a smile. Bianca's eyes narrowed. The council wants reassurance, she told him. Victor is offering peace if you marry into my family before the vote. Publicly. Tonight. Clara's stomach tightened. Marry. Of course. Men like Adrian Moretti did not have relationships. They had alliances. Women like Bianca did not stumble into their lives by accident. They belonged there elegant, thin, dangerous, born fluent in power. Clara stood. I'll take Sophia to the other room. Adrian's gaze snapped to her face. Stay. The word was too fast. Too revealing. Bianca noticed. So did Clara. Bianca's smile sharpened. She should hear it. It may help her understand what she is interrupting. Adrian's voice became ice. Enough. Bianca moved closer to him. You were risking a war for a librarian who found a diary she was never meant to read. Clara felt the words like hands pushing her toward the door. She didn't ask for this, Adrian said. No, but you wanted her in it. Bianca lowered her voice. You wrote her name before she ever knew yours. Clara looked at Adrian. The old fear returned. Adrian's face closed. Bianca had hit something true. Clara walked out before anyone could stop her. She found the security room downstairs. She told herself she only wanted answers. She told herself Adrian had lied too many times, hidden too much, and that if her name was written in his diary, she had the right to know everything. The monitors showed the gates, the shoreline, the hallways, the helicopter pad, and one screen showed the library. Not live. Recorded. Clara leaned closer. Footage of her at the circulation desk. Clara shelving books. Clara leaving at night. Clara helping Sophia find the whale book. Her blood went cold. Behind her, Adrian said, That isn't mine. Clara spun around. He stood in the doorway. She pointed at the screen. You expect me to believe that? Yes. Why? Because you say it calmly. His jaw tightened. She stepped toward him. Anger covering fear because anger was easier to stand inside. You wrote my name in your diary. You knew where I worked. You funded the library. You had footage of me. I did not install those cameras. But you knew about them. He said nothing. That silence hurt worse than a lie. Clara laughed once, bitterly. Of course you did. I found out 3 weeks ago, he said. Victor's men had access to the library security feed through the city contractor. I tried to shut it down without alerting him. You should have told me. Yes. The admission stunned her. Adrian stepped closer. I should have told you many things. Then why didn't you? Because every truth I gave you pulled you deeper into my world. I was already in it. I know. The words were quiet, almost broken. Clara looked back at the screen, at the frozen image of herself alone beneath the library lights. Invisible, she had thought. All that time, she had been watched. Not by the man she feared wanting, by the man hunting the child she had unknowingly helped. I can't do this, she whispered. Adrian's face changed. Clara. No. She moved past him. Don't say my name. He let her go. That hurt most of all. Clara left the safe house with one of Adrian's drivers and demanded to be taken to the only place that still felt like hers. The library. It was closed for repairs. Its shattered windows boarded, its marble entrance stained by rain and police tape. But Clara knew the side door code, and old buildings trusted old habits. Inside, the reading room smelled of dust, wet wood, and broken glass. She walked through the wreckage slowly, tears burning behind her eyes. Her library had been wounded because of a diary, a child, a man who looked at her like she mattered and lied like he had the right. Clara went to the rare book vault. If the prayer book had started this, then the answer was still somewhere here. She searched restoration logs, donor files, transfer slips. Hours passed. Her hands grew cold. Then she found it. Not the prayer book. A photograph tucked inside a catalog folder. It showed Enzo Moretti, Adrian's dead brother, standing beside Victor Santoro and a third man outside the library 10 years earlier. The third man was familiar. Clara stared until recognition struck. Councilman Hensley, the library board member she had forced to apologize months ago. The one Adrian had seen. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered slowly. A man's voice smiled through the line. Miss Bennett, you found the picture. Clara turned toward the darkened shelves. Victor Santoro, she said. I prefer Victor. Her hand tightened around the phone. Where are you? Closer than Moretti would like. The lights went out. Clara ran. A hand caught her in the darkness. She fought Yakubu, everything she had, elbow, nails, teeth, but a cloth pressed over her mouth. The world blurred. The last thing she saw was the library ceiling, high and shadowed above her, as if the building itself were watching helplessly. When Clara woke, she was sitting in a chair beneath a crystal chandelier, not tied crudely, bound elegantly, with silk rope around her wrists. The room was a private club beneath the city, all red velvet, black marble, and old money sin. Men in tuxedos watched her from shadowed tables. A string quartet played softly in the corner, as if kidnapping were simply another form of entertainment. Victor Santoro stood before her in a grey suit, handsome in the empty way marble statues were handsome. Clara Bennett, he said, the librarian who made Adrian Moretti forget the rules. Clara's mouth was dry. I don't know anything useful. Intelligent women always say that when they know exactly how useful they are. He placed the black diary in her lap. Clara's stomach dropped. You stole it from him, she said. Victor smiled. Borrowed. She looked down. The diary had been opened to a page she had not seen before. Sophia, alive. Bennett can verify binding. Hensley sold archive. Lorenzo betrayed Enzo. Clara's pulse quickened. Lorenzo. Adrian's uncle. Victor leaned close. There is a page missing from the prayer book. You saw the binding. You noted the repair. You are the only independent witness who can prove which pages were removed and when. And you need me to lie. I need you to be reasonable. A door opened. Councilman Hensley entered, face pale and sweating. Clara's anger flared through fear. "You sold the archive." Hensley looked away. Victor sighed. "He sold many things. Books, records, children's locations." Clara went still. "Sophia," she whispered. Victor's smile vanished. "The child is a legal inconvenience." "You mean she is an heir?" "I mean she is 6 years old, and worth more dead than hidden." Clara's stomach turned. The room seemed colder. "You're a monster," she said. Victor studied her. "And Adrian is not." Clara said nothing. Victor crouched in front of her, voice soft. "He will come for you. That is the disappointing part. Before you, Adrian Moretti was disciplined, strategic, nearly impossible to provoke." His eyes moved over her body with calculated cruelty. "I confess, I expected someone more obvious. The insult was familiar. It should not have mattered. But after fear, exhaustion, and heartbreak, it landed deep. Then the room changed. Not visibly, not at first." The music continued. Men kept drinking. Victor still smiled, but every man near the entrance slowly stood. Clara turned her head. Adrian Moretti walked into the club. Alone. No coat. Black suit. White shirt open at the throat. His face unreadable, his eyes fixed on Clara. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Victor clapped softly. There he is. Adrian did not look at him, only at Clara. His gaze lowered to the silk around her wrists. Something terrible moved behind his eyes. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Clara's throat tightened. She shook her head. Victor smiled. Touching. "Really?" Adrian finally looked at him. "You have 10 seconds to untie her." Victor laughed. "You came alone." "No," Adrian said. A low rumble passed through the club. Above them, around them. Then the doors opened on every side. Adrian's men filled the room, silent and armed. Behind them came men wearing the Bellini crest. Bianca stepped in last, dressed in black this time, her face cold and satisfied. Victor's smile faded. Adrian glanced at Bianca. She lifted one shoulder. "You were right. Santoro is bad for business." Clara stared at them, stunned. Victor recovered quickly. "This changes nothing. The council votes tonight. The Moretti Empire fractures by dawn." Adrian reached into his jacket and removed a folded document. The room quieted. Victor's eyes narrowed. Adrian held the document up. "The marriage contract," Bianca said softly. Clara's heart stopped. Adrian looked at her. Then he took a silver lighter from his pocket and set the contract on fire. Flames crawled up the paper, orange and bright against the dark room. Gasps moved through the club. Bianca watched without surprise. Victor stared as the alliance burned in Adrian's hand. "You would sacrifice the Bellini alliance," Victor said slowly. "For her?" Adrian dropped the burning paper into a champagne bucket. "No," he said. "I sacrificed the illusion that I needed it." Victor's face hardened. "You've made her your weakness." Adrian's gaze moved to Clara again. This time, he did not hide what was in it. "She was never my weakness." The room exploded, not into chaos, but into controlled violence. Men moved, weapons flashed, tables overturned. Clara ducked as Adrian crossed the room toward her with terrifying focus. Victor grabbed her chair and yanked it back, pressing a small blade near her throat. Adrian stopped instantly. The entire club froze. "There he is," Victor whispered. "The monster brought to heel by a librarian." Clara's breath trembled. Adrian's eyes locked on hers. Not on the blade, on her. "Clara," he said softly, "remember the freight elevator?" Her mind raced. The library. The old mechanism. The broken gate. You had to kick it low, not high. Her chair leg rested near Victor's polished shoe. Clara slammed her heel down as hard as she could. Victor cursed and shifted. It was enough. Adrian moved. Fast, brutal. Clara saw only fragments, his hand closing around Victor's wrist, the blade falling, Adrian's body between hers and danger, his men surging forward. Someone cut the ropes at her wrists. Bianca pulled Clara behind a marble column as the room dissolved into shouts and broken glass. When it ended, Victor Santoro was on his knees with Adrian's hand locked around the back of his neck. Adrian leaned down and said something Clara could not hear. Whatever it was drained the color from Victor's face. Then police sirens sounded above the club. Real police this time, federal agents. Bianca slipped a drive into one agent's hand. "The city contractor files," she said. "Library surveillance. Payments to Hensley. Santoro's offshore accounts." Clara stared. Bianca looked at her. "You're welcome." It was the closest thing to kindness Clara expected from her. Adrian released Victor and crossed to Clara. Slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal, as if he knew he had no right to touch her. Clara stood trembling, wrists marked by silk, heart still racing from terror, and something worse than terror. Adrian stopped in front of her. "I should have told you everything," he said. "Yes, I thought secrecy would protect you. It didn't." "No." His face was pale beneath the club lights, control cracked at the edges. "I thought if I kept enough distance, wanting you would not become dangerous." Clara looked up at him, tears burning again. "And did it?" His voice lowered. "It became the only honest thing left in me." The words struck something deep, but before she could answer, an agent approached. "Miss Bennett, we need your statement." The moment ended. Adrian stepped back. This time, Clara was the one who reached for him. Not much, just her fingers around his sleeve. But Adrian went still as if she had touched his heart with both hands. "Don't disappear," she said. His gaze lowered to her hand, then back to her face. "Never from you." The scandal broke open by morning. Councilman Hensley was arrested outside his townhouse. Victor Santoro's clubs were raided. The library contractor confessed to installing illegal surveillance. The missing prayer book was recovered from a private vault beneath a Beacon Hill mansion, along with the page that proved Lorenzo Moretti had betrayed his own nephew Enzo to Victor years earlier. Lorenzo ran. Adrian found him first. Clara never asked exactly what happened in the warehouse by the harbor that night. She only knew Adrian returned before dawn with rain in his hair, a bruise along his jaw, and a silence heavy enough to fill the room. She was waiting at the safe house, sitting beside Sophia, who had fallen asleep curled under a blanket with the whale book on her lap. Adrian stopped in the doorway when he saw them. For a moment, Clara saw the man beneath the empire. Not innocent, never that, but tired, haunted. "Human, is it over?" she asked. He looked at Sophia. "For her," he said. "Yes." Clara stood carefully, trying not to wake the child. "And for you?" Adrian's eyes met hers. Men like him did not get endings easily. They got pauses, ceasefires, graves with names no one spoke aloud. But he crossed the room and stood before Clara as if she were the only answer he had. "I don't know how to be the kind of man who deserves you," he said. The honesty hurt. Clara folded her arms, partly to keep herself steady. "Good." His brows drew together. "You shouldn't think you already know how," she said. "That would be arrogant." A faint breath left him. Almost a laugh. Almost pain. "I am arrogant." I noticed. He looked at her for a long time. Then his hand lifted, slowly, giving her every chance to move away. Clara did not. His fingers touched a strand of hair near her cheek, brushing away a tiny shard of glass she had missed from the library. The touch was so gentle it made her chest ache. "I was afraid," he said. Of Victor? No. His thumb hovered near her cheek, not quite touching skin. Of arriving too late. Clara closed her eyes. That was the moment she understood the most dangerous thing about Adrian Moretti. It was not his violence. It was not his power. It was the way he made protection feel like a vow and a threat. At the same time, weeks passed. The Blackwell Public Library reopened under falling snow, not with a quiet ribbon cutting, but with half of Boston watching. News vans crowded the street. Donors stood beneath restored windows. Children filled the front steps with paper snowflakes and handmade signs. Clara stood near the entrance in a deep green dress she had bought on sale and nearly returned twice. Her hair was pinned softly at the back of her neck. Her hands trembled, but not from fear this time. From being seen, her name had been cleared publicly. More than cleared. Celebrated. The librarian who exposed corruption. The woman who protected a hidden child. The archivist who saved the Blackwell collection. People who had ignored her for years now wanted to shake her hand. It felt strange, uncomfortable, almost funny. Then the crowd quieted. A black SUV stopped at the curb. Adrian stepped out into the snow. He wore a black overcoat and no expression, but the city reacted to him the way it always did, with a ripple of fear, fascination, and whispered warnings. Sophia jumped out behind him in a red coat, clutching the whale book to her chest. Clara smiled before she could stop herself. Adrian saw it. His face changed just enough that only she would notice. He walked up the steps, stopping one level below her. For once, he looked up at Clara. Not down, not across a table, up. "I brought something back," he said. From inside his coat, he took out the black diary. Clara's breath caught. The same leather, the same silver clasp. The object that had dragged her into danger and truth and him. She stared at it. "I don't want that thing. I know." He opened it. The pages that once held her name again and again had been removed. In their place was one clean page. Only one line had been written. Clara Bennett. Below it, another sentence. Not a warning, not leverage, not a weakness. Adrian handed her the pen. Snow fell between them. The crowd watched without understanding. Clara looked at the page, then at him. "What do you want me to write?" His voice was quiet. "Whatever comes next." For a moment, she could not speak. She thought of the night she found her name, written like a curse. Of shattered glass, black SUVs, hidden cameras, a child with a whale book, silk ropes around her wrists, fire consuming a marriage contract, and Adrian standing in every doorway between her and death. She thought of loneliness. His, hers. The kind that had recognized itself before either of them had the courage to name it. Clara took the pen. Her hand shook as she wrote beneath his sentence. "She chooses herself first." Adrian read the words. Then he looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes softened into something that was not weakness at all. It was surrender. "Always," he said. The ceremony continued around them. Speeches were made. Cameras flashed. Children ran laughing through the reopened doors. Sophia dragged Adrian inside to see the restored children's wing, where a new mural of whales covered one wall. Clara watched him kneel beside the little girl, listening seriously as she explained every painted wave. A man feared by half the city, on one knee in a children's room, holding a library card. Clara laughed softly. Adrian looked over. The moment stretched across the warm golden light of the library. Later, after the crowd thinned and snow softened the streets, Clara found him alone in the rare book room. He stood before the restored prayer book, hands in his coat pockets, expression unreadable. "Do you ever get tired of brooding in dramatic places?" she asked. He turned. "Not when it brings you to me." Her heart betrayed her with one hard beat. She walked closer, stopping beside him. For a while they looked at the book in silence. "The first time I saw you," Adrian said, "I thought you were brave." Clara smiled faintly. "I was terrified." "I know." She looked at him. That's why it mattered. Outside, the snow fell harder, turning the library windows white. Adrian reached for her hand, slowly again, always giving her the choice. Clara looked at his hand, scarred, powerful, dangerous. Then she placed hers in it. His fingers closed around her with careful restraint, as if he knew strength meant nothing unless he could control it. "I am still afraid of you sometimes," she said. His face tightened. "You should be. That's not romantic. It's honest." Clara studied him. "I don't want a man who pretends he isn't dangerous." "And what do you want?" She stepped closer. The rare bookroom smelled of old paper, polished wood, and winter. "I want the truth," she said, "even when it's ugly. I want choices. I want you to stop deciding what I can survive." Adrian nodded once. "And?" She took a breath. "I want you to come to the library without armed men scaring the children." A shadow of amusement touched his mouth. "I can leave most of them outside." "Adrian." "All right," he said. "Two." She tried not to smile. Failed. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes with visible effort. That restraint, more than any touch, made heat rise in her chest. "Clara," he said. Her name in his voice no longer felt like a threat. It felt like the first line of a book she had been afraid to open. "Yes. If I kiss you, I won't pretend it means nothing." The room went very still. Clara's heart pounded. She thought of every version of herself that had been overlooked, mocked, underestimated. The woman who had hidden in stacks because the world felt safer when no one noticed her. The woman who had opened a forbidden diary and found herself written into a war. That woman was gone. Or maybe she had finally stepped into the light. Clara lifted her chin. "Good," she whispered. Adrian touched her face with both hands, as if she were something rare and breakable and more powerful than anything he owned. Then he kissed her. Not softly, not cruelly. Carefully at first, with all the restraint of a man holding back a storm. Then deeper, when Clara's fingers curled into his coat and she kissed him back like she had chosen the danger with her eyes open. Outside, Boston disappeared beneath the snow. Inside, the library glowed, and on the desk behind them, the black diary lay open to its newest page. Clara Bennett. She chooses herself first. Beneath it, in Adrian's handwriting, one final line had been added. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving she was right to choose me."